So welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name's Mary English. We're episode 415 and today we've got a special guest and we've got Caitriona and she's speaking to us from Ireland and she's a professional astrologer. She works in private practice. She works remotely and she has a very big presence on Instagram. So welcome, Caitriona. Lovely for you to be with us today. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. And thank you so much for having me on, Mary. It's such a pleasure to be in your company and to learn from you as well.
It's really nice that you got into astrology and you're in a country like Ireland. So you're in a pretty Catholic part of the world. Can I ask you, if you don't mind me starting out with that question? On your website it says you were a reluctant astrologer and you did it privately for a long time. Is that because it wouldn't be sort of socially acceptable to be doing that type of thing where you live, or am I totally off the mark?
No, you're exactly on the mark. Yeah, it's not very socially acceptable still in Ireland to be an astrologer. You do get, funny looks when you tell people you're an astrologer. And I essentially had to out myself as an astrologer when I was ready to do so. And I have other friends who are astrologers in Ireland who are a similar age to me, and they talk about their coming out story as well. So it is a very real phenomenon. And it's not unique to Ireland. I know it's happened in other countries too. I guess Ireland is getting a lot more progressive now, more open-minded. But when I was growing up in the late 80s, like a lot of people in Ireland, I was growing up in a home that was staunchly Roman Catholic, and lots of members of your family could be members of the clergy. And I actually had two uncles who were Catholic priests. One is deceased now. And, I grew up in a home where we prayed every day, and Mass was actually something that we didn't just celebrate in the church, we celebrated in our physical home. So I had a very religious Jupiter and Pisces upbringing, which I'm grateful for. I had a very strong faith growing up, but it also led to sort of a spiritual crisis because I had that questioning mind of, hang on a minute, eternal damnation, that doesn't sit very well with me. Like, I'm pretty much doomed. It was very fatalistic. So it led me to explore mythology as a child. And I got really obsessed with the Roman gods. And I found these, I think there were an Usborne set of books in the library, all about Greek and Roman mythology with beautiful illustrations. And I just was so fascinated by Zeus and so fascinated by Jupiter, not knowing that I was a Sagittarius rising. And I was being initiated as a child, Mary, for this world of astrology. And it was something like I just ate all those books up. And I remember asking the librarian, are there any more books on mythology? And she looked at me kind of funny and she went, not in the children's section. To say, you're a weird child. And I never made the correlation between the myths and the zodiac signs. That didn't happen till later in life. When I was a teenager, when I was in my teens and in my 20s, I realized, oh, wait, the planets and the zodiac signs, because I was always interested in my zodiac sign.
How did you even know about the zodiac signs when you were younger, though? This is a question I like to ask people. How did you even hear about astrology as a thing, or the fact that, whatever your sun sign is? Am I allowed to say you're a Cancer?
Yes.
Yes, right.
Yeah. And so, like, when I was younger, I remember, going to little gift shops and finding things with like Cancerian and, the date of the zodiac constellation and being like, I'm a Cancer, and identifying as a Cancer, and like the idea of self-discovery and learning something about yourself. And Cancer always had the qualities sensitive, empathetic, cranky, moody, the stereotypical Cancerian thing. And I would be like, yeah, like I'm some of those things, maybe not all of those things. And, now upon reflection as an adult, I can say, yeah, I have all those qualities, but I also have a way more than that. But I liked the idea of understanding people through the lens of their zodiac sign. So even as a child, I would see these little key rings and these bookmarks and feel like drawn to them, that I couldn't explain it. And I remember getting a book as a gift with the 12 zodiac signs, which was...
So who gave you the gift? Who gave you the gift, the book?
I would love to remember. I think it could have been, my parents every year for Santi, we'd get toys. And we also would get a book. And one year I was gifted a book about the zodiac signs because I guess they knew I was very interested in that kind of thing. Not that they wanted to encourage it, but I was interested. And it
Mm-mm.
was a book all about the 12 zodiac signs. Can't remember the name of the book, don't know where the
Mm-hmm.
book is, but it was so dog-eared, Mary. Like I read it and reread it, I absorbed it, and it was just wow. And I did it with all my siblings, and being
Mm-hmm.
up in a Roman Catholic home, I had a lot of siblings.
So how big is the family then? How many are there?
There was 7 of us.
Oh wow, there was 5 of us. Yeah,
And
and we're
I
a
was the
Catholic family.
only I was the only Cancerian. So I was like, oh, I'm different. I'm set apart. I'm special. And that suited my Aries moon very well. And I started learning, I could see that my Aquarius and Gemini sister, I was like, oh, well, they're very logical and scientific. And then my
Mm.
Pisces sister, she's very like imaginative like me, and my Pisces brother and my Scorpio brother. And yeah, I had a Taurus brother as well, and I would observe them like I was studying the zodiac signs and seeing their qualities. And some of them, I have to say, some of my brothers and sisters really showed the stereotypical qualities of some of the zodiac signs, and we all have to start there, don't we, in the beginning?
Yes, and I think I do get cross with people that put the sun sign astrologers down. I'm effectively a sun sign astrologer because I've written a book for each of the signs of the zodiac, and I classify myself as a sun sign astrologer. Not that I can't do other types of astrology, because I do, because where I live, which is in the UK in Bath, people don't speak astrology, so it's pointless me even going into those things. And quite a lot of clients aren't going to know that their chart comprises of
Yeah.
all the signs of the zodiac. They're not just their sign, because they're going to have things in other signs of the zodiac, la la la. But yeah, everybody has to. I mean, I started with Linda Goodman. That was how.
Mhm.
But I was lucky. I had an auntie, and she was heavily into astrology, and she was a Catholic, and she did everybody's charts all the time. But my parents didn't. But she knew a lot of astrology. She was a Gemini with Moon in Leo. She knew tons, and she could do charts. And when she died, I got all her books. I asked my cousins who weren't even interested in it, can I have her books? And I've still got her ephemeris, bless, with my date and time of birth written in it.
Oh, what a gift. What a gift. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
incredible. And I actually think the sun signs, I made a video about this on my page before, that, without the sun, there would be no life on Earth. And then people are so quick to say, oh, your sun sign isn't important, and that your rising sign is more important. Well, I say, like, your sun is the spark of light where the soul entered the birth chart, and the glyph is a circle with a little dot in the center. So surely, like, that means something, that the
Mm.
sun is like, the purest essence of who you are. And lately, when I go out socializing and I tell people, oh, yeah, I'm a karmic astrologer, they often say, oh, guess my zodiac sign,
Oh, I
really
get that.
quickly. And I'm like, oh, I don't like to play this game. And they know, no, 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 come on, guess, guess. And the sad part is, Mary, I always get it right. So I met a beautiful girl recently, and she was tall. She had gorgeous cheekbones, and she was like an English rose beauty, black hair, beautiful pale skin. And she said, guess my zodiac sign. And I said, no, 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 I don't like to play this game. And she said, no, no, guess. And I just said, are you a Capricorn? And she screamed. And I just said, she was like, how did you know? And I said, well, your sculpted, chiseled cheekbones. I said, you either had Saturn in the first house or you were a Capricorn sun. And I said,
Mhm,
you classic English rose beauty. You're a traditional beauty. Like it's the first thing I saw when I looked at you. I said, she's a classic Capricorn. And sometimes people are frightened that, you can know astrology that deeply, that all of the signs, as you know, they have tells, they things they give away, like the Taurus nose, the
mhm,
Aries eyebrows, the Cancer rising face. It's
mhm.
just fascinating. I love learning astrology through observing the people around me. I guess that's part of maybe the Pluto and Scorpio generation effect too. The people watching, the looking and the seeing, watching how my Taurus brother, he will come home at Christmas. He'll put on his bathrobe. He'll sit down. He'll pour himself a glass of wine, and he'll watch a marathon of Harry Potter movies.
Mhm.
And he is the Taurus cliche.
Not going to move.
And if you ask
Going
him to do
to
something, he'll do it,
stay
but he'll do it
sat.
slowly.
Actually, I guess it does happen. Some recently asked me, so this is a therapist. So I went to a therapist, and she said, guess. I told her what I did. I don't know why I do that. And she said, well, guess what sign I'm in? I said, well, you're definitely an earth sign. And she said, which ones are they? And I said, well, it's Virgo, Taurus, or Capricorn. And I said, And then she said, of those, which one do you think I am? I said, I don't know. I said, but you haven't moved much while you've been talking to me, and you've just been sat in this chair. So I said, it's either Capricorn or Taurus. And because I even said Taurus, she went, oh, God, how did you guess that? And I said, well, it's because you were just sat there, all sort of, hardly moving in the chair. It's just funny you say that about your brother. I mean, I'm no good at guessing the signs, but I'm better at guessing the elements, but
Yeah,
not the
the
signs
elements.
of the zodiac. Yeah,
And
I
I
can do
think you
elements.
can really tell the earth elements because they move, they radiate security. You feel anchored in their presence.
Yes.
I imagine them like mountains. When I'm around a Taurus or a Capricorn, I always feel so secure and safe. And I'm like, oh, there's lovely, strong earth energy here. And even the way they walk, they have a heavier gait than the rest of us. Those who lack earth, myself, I have Mars and Capricorn. That's my only earth placement. But I can spot an earth sign a mile off. I always think they have the biggest tail of all the signs.
Yes, I think the elements are a useful thing to learn, especially for beginners. But I don't think it's anything because we're just about to have all the outer planets. I mean, Pluto's changed sign into air, and then Neptune's going to change sign into fire. And God help us, Uranus is going to change sign into fire as well. Is that right?
But Gemini.
Uranus is going to go Gemini, which is air, yes. So we're going to have all this fire and air going on when we've had earth and water, and you just sort of think, how's that going to manifest? I don't know, because I wasn't alive the last time it happened.
Yeah, huge transformation.
You're a teacher, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that's your day job. And then you also like teaching astrology. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when I am a teacher, that's my first love, and I knew from an early age I was going to be a primary school teacher. I announced it, as a child, that that's what I was going to do when I was older. So I think I had a bit of a premonition around it. And then what I've observed about astrology, when I started my astrology page, I started it really reluctantly, and my astrology teacher said, "You need to start." And I said, "Oh no, I'm not ready." And he said, no, you just start. You need to start. And then one of my astrologer friends in the class, you know her actually, Jasmina Brokovich.
Yes.
She said, the next new moon, there's a really good moon. Look, it's going to activate. I forget what it was activating for me. And she said, this is the time to start. She elected the time for me there in class. And it was like she raised the gauntlet. And I, being fire dominant, I love a challenge. So I was like, oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start my page. And when I remember starting my page thinking, what angle am I going to take? What am I going to talk about? And then I just said, I'm going to teach astrology because basically it's the most complicated thing you can ever learn. It's so complicated. You never finish learning it. You start it, you hope to get to a point in life where you're finished, but that point never comes. And I just said, if I can't make astrology easy enough for people to understand, I clearly don't understand it well enough myself. So it was a challenge for me. I was like, I teach 6-year-olds, I teach 5-year-olds, I teach 7-year-olds. Surely I can teach the nature of Neptune, the nature of Pluto. I can teach about the sun. I can teach the rising sign. And that's what I tried to do when I set up my page first, was to teach about the qualities of the inner planets, the outer planets, to teach the glyphs. And I didn't even touch off aspects because, like you said, Mary, about the sun in the birth chart. If somebody can't understand the basic, you can't run before you walk, essentially.
Yes.
I wanted to teach people to walk through their birth chart because that's how we all learned. We learned first by, oh my God, my son is in the 7th house or my son is in the 8th house, whichever house system you're using. And that's why I taught myself astrology through Placidus house system. And now I move between Placidus and Holstein, and I actually see Holstein is probably a bit easier for beginners, all right.
Yes.
But it's good to know as many house systems as possible, I believe.
That's such an awful thing for beginners when they first start learning. They use whatever system they come across, and then they learn that there are other house systems. Because I used to be on the astro.com websites forum quite a lot. I used to just read a lot and take part occasionally because it's been going a long time. And when suddenly discovers that there are other house systems, then there'd be a long discussion and everybody jumping. This one's better. That one's, I use this system because, and it's the one thing. If you want to start an argument, ask people what house system they use.
Yeah, and I always say, if you want to know how evolved an astrologer is, an evolved astrologer should not ever stick with one. Like, you should be like, do you know what? Astrology is a tree. This is just one branch on the tree. And like, I'm open to being wrong. Like, so for example, my sun is in the 7th house in Placidus. It's in the 8th house in whole sign. I resonate with both of those
Mm.
really deeply. So my thing, I'm always saying to people, two things can be true at the same time. You don't have to be like hashtag whole sign, hashtag Placidus is better. You
Mm.
know, why can't we just actually, that's my Libra midheaven now probably coming in there, Mary. But I'm like, why
Mm.
can't we just like have a, you know, a bit of open-mindedness around it, the house systems. I actually sometimes I get a little bit, well, I don't get annoyed, but I get a little bit, I despair a little bit when I hear people like vehemently fight for one house system being superior to another. I think like, well, how would you know that? Like, astrology has been studied for millennia, and you know, that's like saying that Western tropical astrology is superior to Vedic. We don't know, like all of them
Mm.
have a place on the tree. Oh,
Yes.
we're
And
so far now from the roots of the tree. How can we tell?
well, yes, and different cultures will have different
Mm.
spiritual experiences, and different parts of the world have different ways of divinating. But the house system, we won't even go there because we'll be. I absolutely hear everything you're saying, but it is unfortunate how there have been some very large arguments about it,
Yeah.
and also about which one started when, which therefore makes. I mean, I finished. So, a lady finished learning astrology with me recently, and she especially likes the whole sign system. And that's fine. I teach equal house, but it doesn't matter. And so what I said to her was, you know, you can, and she hasn't made her mind up what system she wants to use, and she's going to experiment with it. And I said, that's fine. I said, but do you know that you can do a chart without any houses? So I took her over to astro.com and I demonstrated you could do a chart with no houses, and you can still do an interpretation. You can still do transits. Obviously, you can't change the ascendant. It doesn't matter what house system you use. The ascendant is always going to be a thing, provided you know it. If you live in the UK, you might not, because nobody knows what time they're born. But this lady was from the US, so she knew what time she was born. But you can do astrology perfectly fine without having any houses and going into that depth of detail for a client, because you can go, oh, you've got this and this sign and that sign, and this is above the horizon, that's below the horizon, and there's this and the other transit coming past. We can just ignore all the houses altogether if we want to, if we're not sure about it, or if we're a beginner astrologer. Because I remember first starting learning, it was just what sign everything was in, not necessarily where it was located. And like you say, I think it's important that people learn that there are more than one system. I interviewed a chappie a while ago, and he uses a different system for a different method of divination. So somebody's asking about this, so he used this system. Somebody's asking about that, he used another system, and he's done them all. So he knows, you know, which one he's going to like the most.
Yeah.
But yeah, we could be here forever talking about our systems.
Yeah, it's such a waste of our life force synergies and
Yeah.
astrologers. We don't want to be like fighting on the internet about it. I always say we should like be out doing, we could be trying to find a cure for cancer or
Yes.
doing something important with astrology. But yeah, it's funny though. Yeah, it's daunting when someone approaches astrology first and they start with Placidus and then they find out there's other systems. And yeah, it's just something, it's a hurdle we all had to cross. And for
Yes.
everyone starting out, you'll get over
Because
that hurdle. Focus on one house system to start.
absolutely, and not only that, it's with the house system as well, because I know why people get worked up is that, oh, I've got sun in the fourth house, for instance, and then they find another system, they're now sun in the third, and they've read this interpretation, and beginners always want to read the interpretations and for those interpretations to be true, but not to say that they're not true, you know. And then when it comes down to what's true and what's not true, you know, I'm sure ancient astrologers didn't argue about it as much as we do.
No, no. And I always
Because
say when I read, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. I always say
yes.
that's the start of my reading. That's my disclaimer.
Mm.
You know, rather than, you know, you don't have to, we always say you may have these qualities so that you don't let astrology, I suppose, define who you are. You still have all of your personal agency. But like if you are, I don't know, maybe if you have your moon in Taurus, which is such an amazing exalted placement, you may, the shadow side of that is that you may get like locked into stubborn patterns. You may have a fixed mindset. It might
Mm.
be good for you sometimes to break out of your comfort zone. but you may also have all these other positive manifestations. So like
Yes.
May is a great word to use, I think, for all people learning astrology.
And so you speak two languages then? You speak English and you speak astrology, yes?
And Irish.
And Irish as well. Okay. So that you're multilingual, but we have to remember that astrology is a language to learn. And I think that's the nice thing that unites astrologers, regardless of where they're located, is that those symbols that we use to represent Pisces or Aquarius, those same symbols, exactly the same symbols that were developed right back in the day, a couple of thousand years ago type of thing. Those things haven't changed much, apart from Pluto. They've changed the symbol for that a couple of times.
As a karmic astrologer, I don't know if you'd agree with this, Mary, but I really believe, I've looked at the charts of some really big astrologers, and I believe that most of us who are deep in astrology, we practiced it in previous lifetimes. And when we incarnate now, we're remembering the astrology rather than learning it a lot of the time. And then like you're saying stuff sometimes, and I'm like, God, I don't know where that came from. It's like a download, but you're like, no, actually, this work is familiar to me. The reason it resonates is because I'm remembering. It's not like new. I've often felt that intuitively, and just I've been told it too when people have read my chart, but maybe it's just a conceited thing that all astrologers get. But I do believe like it's a beautiful thing that's passed down to us, and we're like just, the keepers of the flame. We're passing it on. The asteroid goddess Vesta, I always think of her. You're passing on the torch to the next people. When you're even if you could teach someone their sun, their moon, their rising, what a gift that would be to that person to know, oh, I'm a Virgo moon. That's why I need everything to be organized.
Yeah.
That's why I'm the person that makes all the plans in the group. That's so liberating for someone to find out that, I think. Because they could have been like, oh, astrology is rubbish. I'm a Cancer sun, but I'm a Virgo moon. Like when you explain, well, how they feel, how they navigate the world, how they feel their way through the world. I always say you have to feed your moon to feel safe in life. And I have an Aries moon. So what do I need to feel safe? I need a challenge. I need independence. I need, a bit of adventure. I need to push myself at times. I also need to fight for the underdog. That's probably what I need. And every moon sign, you look at your moon sign, think, what does that sign need? What do I need to feed it with in order to feel safe in life, so that I can feel comforted and suitably like emotional.
And it's the unconscious. The moon is the unconscious, the subconscious.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.